Welcome to the latest Facebook Live from MInerva Growth, where we look to bring value to business owners around the globe on topics that will be useful to them right now and into the future. So, hi, thank you very much for agreeing to take part in the live chat today. Please, can you introduce yourself and tell us about your business?
Hi, Rich. I'm Simon Lader. I am the co-founder of Salisi Human Capital and Salisi Academy. Salisi Human Capital is a headhunting firm that's been around since 2005, specializing in executive recruitment for the cybersecurity industry. And in March of 2020, we launched Salisi Academy as a training and coaching arm of the business to help people transition and develop their careers.
Amazing. So, what made you start in the first place? What's your background?
Okay, so I bounced from job to job when I left university, and I found myself in all places selling car alarms. And I actually built up a car alarm business, selling car alarms installations. And I was bought out by another company and trousered an embarrassingly large amount of cash at the age of 23 and didn't know what to do. So I went to a recruitment company, and the guy who interviewed me, who turned out to be the owner of the company, was just intrigued by the fact I had no idea what a recruitment company did or what I wanted to do. I just had like bags of energy and bags of confidence. I was a cocky little asshole. And he offered me a job and said, "Do you want to come and be a recruiter?" I said, "Sure. What do they do?" And I worked for him for 4 years. Then I went to, they were called Chess Consultants based in Manchester. And his name was Mark Bridges, and he was a real mentor to me. And he was a great guy. I then worked for Torres and Partners for another 4 years under a chap called Chris Keeling, who was another fantastic mentor. And then in 2005, we launched Salisi Human Capital, and the rest is history.
So, what was the spark that made you set up on your own after all that time working for people in recruitment?
Well, I suppose like many other entrepreneurs, I just felt that I could express myself better if I was in control of my own destiny. I found it very hard, even during that 8-year period, I found it very hard being within somebody else's structure. And there were a number of times that I was extremely badly behaved as a result of it. I remember there was one time where I had a very public row with one of my bosses. I'll protect that by not saying which one it was. And I said something fireable to them. I can't remember what it was, but I said something horrible. And somebody else turned around and went, "Oh, you can't say that. He pays your wages." I said, "With figures like that on the board, I pay his." So that kind of gives you an idea as to the kind of person that I was.
Yeah, I've had that inkling about you, and I think we're quite similar to a certain degree as well. And it's almost like you're unemployable to a degree,
Yeah,
and you've got to do it on your own, as you're never going to be able to be employed by anyone or put up with it.
that's right. That's right. And excuse me. And I think that something that most entrepreneurs, and certainly the ones that I've had the pleasure of working with or interviewing, they've all had the same sort of thing, which is they struggle to occupy somebody else's world and follow other people's rules. And it's not because they just have like a flagrant disobedience or lack of respect for authority, although many of us do. I think it's more the amount of creativity that you have means that it's hard to be restricted to like a 9 to 5 or operating within other people's processes. And I think that was really what drove me to start my own.
It's so really true you saying that. It resonates with me massively. So me, the problem was always questioning. I've always questioned people if I don't see something or don't understand. Well, why did you do that? That doesn't make any sense. And people hated it all the way through school, all the way to employment and questioning everyone. Well, it doesn't make any sense. People just don't like to be questioned by stuff. And it was almost not being arsy about it. I mean, I suppose probably some of it was, but it doesn't make any sense. Explain to me why, because sure there's a better way of doing it. And people just don't want to hear it half the time as well.
Yeah, Yeah,
So,
I had that actually when I first left university. I was working for one of the first jobs that I had was working for a warehousing company. They were a massive telecoms distributor back in the days when people used to have fax machines, and I remember that I'd done a module in university specifically about warehouse management systems, and I had to design one for a module. Anyway, so I came in and started this job, and I said, I said, basically, we're doing it this and this and this way. And I wrote basically a paper and said, this is a way that will be massively more efficient, and it'll do, you'll be able to do things in half the time, twice the productivity. And I couldn't understand why I was lambasted for doing it. Rather than I thought I'd be, they'd have a parade for me and carry around a loft and
ticket,
throw
yeah.
garlands at me. But it didn't happen. And I was a 19, 20-year-old little git who just thought he knew everything, and it didn't go that well. So,
I can imagine. Fair play to you. So you obviously from Manchester, your background's from Manchester. You're not in Manchester anymore. So tell me about the move and how all that came about.
Okay, so in 2011, I think it was, so tracking back a little bit, all the way through my career, I've specialized in recruiting for either startups or venture capital backed cybersecurity companies. That's basically what we do. And we've had some very large clients, HP, I think Hewlett Packard is probably our biggest. And we've worked with IBM, we've worked with Microsoft, we've worked with Siemens, so we've worked with some big companies. But I've always had a passion of working with smaller companies because it's you get a lot more gratification moving the needle when you're working for a small company than, whatever I do for HP is not going to make a big difference. But when I'm working for a small company that's just had funding, if I put their team in place, I can see that the fruits of my labor will lead to them either going public or getting acquired or not. So I get personally a lot of satisfaction out of that. So we've gravitated towards working with smaller companies. The majority of smaller companies in our industry are either based out of Israel or out of Silicon Valley. So, and we were finding more and more and more of our customers that we were working with in Europe were saying, can you give us a hand over here? Now, the time difference is such that it's much easier to work for an American company in the UK than to work for Americans in America, okay? Headhunting calls typically are more receptive, or people are more receptive to them at the end of their day rather than at the beginning of their day. So it's very hard if you're in the UK trying to fill a job or trying to headhunt for a position that's in New York or in San Francisco. So we decided to open up an office on the West Coast, and we looked around, and actually it was my wife and I decided that we would be the ones that would take the plunge. And in 2013, we made the move. We couldn't find anywhere on the West Coast that we liked, but we'd vacationed loads of times in a small town you may have heard of called Las Vegas. And as a result, we decided to move here. And the funny thing is, when I was in Manchester, the majority of clients that we had were in Thames Valley, right? I spent every 2 days a week. I'd get on the train and go to Thames Valley Park, right? Or I'd drive. It's easier for me to get from here to San Francisco than it was to get from Manchester to Thames Valley.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And cheaper, by the way. It's cheaper. A flight from here to San Francisco, I can get for, I don't know, $80, $90. It's more than that to get the train. So,
So what's it like to live in Las Vegas then? That must be quite a cool place to live.
Well, it's 108 degrees today, so cool isn't the word I would use. But
thank you for dropping that in.
Before all the COVID business, before coronavirus, it's great because we live in a town just outside of Vegas called Henderson, and it's a suburb of Vegas. And Vegas is close enough for the crazy to be there when I want it, but far enough away that it doesn't kind of impact on my everyday life. So the Strip is just like a series of lights kind of twinkling in the distance at night. But otherwise, it's just like living in any suburban town in America. It's great. Cost of living is great. I don't want to brag, So I'm not going to talk to you about the size of my
But
house or the fact that I've got a pool or, the palm trees in the back garden. But suffice to say, my wife and I feel very, very blessed and very lucky that we have the opportunity to live here.
listen, you obviously haven't been to Birmingham recently. That's all I can say. It's probably changed a lot since you left. The UK. It's like that here. Just so what? Seriously. Okay, I'm interested to know more about the academy. So talk to me about the academy that you started this year, the pivot that you made around COVID.
Right. So because of COVID, the business had to pivot. It's as simple as
Yes.
that. There were we our book of business and our pipeline was just overnight was shredded. It was
Yeah.
just it was like 2000. It was like the autumn of 2008 all over again, where
Yeah.
everything just went and fell off a cliff. So we decided very, very quickly we needed to pivot, and we decided that a sensible thing for us to do would be to offer our knowledge of what we do, either or both, to companies who may still want to be recruiting but don't necessarily have the budget to hire a team of executive headhunters, and also to people who either have lost their jobs or are looking to transition. Okay, recognizing obviously that now, probably more than ever, because of an abundance of people looking for work and fewer organizations that are looking for people, that the competition amongst candidates or job seekers is going to be much higher. So the focus initially has been providing content to people who are looking for jobs and helping them with improving their resumes, CVs, their interview technique, offer negotiation, even tracking all the way back to how do you know what job is right for you? How do you know, what job you want to be going for? And helping them do a kind of internal skills and needs analysis, so they can, take a look in the mirror and determine, right, what do I want to do? I mean, for some people, I'm not blind to that. For some people, losing their job is devastating. I'm very, very lucky. I've never been in that position myself, but when I was doing my A levels, my dad lost his job, and thankfully, within a relatively short period of time, he found another one, and went on to be very, very successful. But I saw firsthand, how devastating it can be to somebody, when they lose their job. So I'm not blind to that. But for other people, it could be an opportunity. If somebody's lost their job, but they've had a good severance pay, government support, or whatever it is, then this might be an opportunity for them to look and go, okay, for the last X amount of years, I've been in a job I've kind of felt I've had to do, but I've now got an opportunity to look for a job I want to do. How am I going to go about doing that? So for whoever it is, we look to provide the tools and the skills for them to be able to find the job they want to do, earn the money they want to earn, and do something, and spend more time with their families, and maybe solve some of the problems that they've had in their personal lives that have been created by being in the wrong job.
That's really cool. It's an amazing switch to do, but my God, how relevant was that? And is it still now in the marketplace the way it is? That's phenomenal. Amazing.
Thank you. Thanks. So we'll,
And
we'll see.
how's it gone down?
I beg your pardon?
How's it gone down, or how's it going down?
Well, it's going all right. I mean, we only actually launched our first product in the last week, to be honest,
Right.
because the easiest thing in the world to do is to say, and I'm sure you know this yourself, and I'm sure you've experienced this from some of the people you've spoken to. The easiest thing in the world is to say, right, I'm starting a new business that's going to do X, but then you've got to deliver. All right. Anyone can say, I'm going to start a business launching rockets to, and sending people up into space, right? But how long did it take Virgin Galactic and SpaceX to actually do it? From when they launched, this is what their intention was, to actually doing it, okay? So what we wanted to do was to make sure that the products that we put out there, many of which are free, but some of which is paid content, are valuable. And creating value takes time. So it took us 3 months to produce content that we felt was had relevance to the market, and then also to understand because don't forget, we had to pivot our own business model from being one where we had a roster of 20 or 30 clients that were where we were working with them very, very closely, to suddenly now being right. Okay, from it being a low volume, high value sales model to now being a high volume, low value sales model, and then learning how to do that. So we had to do an awful lot of internal education in that respect, which is where you and I found one another.
Absolutely.
So there's been an awful lot of internal sort of education as well, which, by the way, I have to say, I have absolutely loved. I've had an absolute ball doing this, because don't forget, from the age of 23, my job hasn't really changed. So I've learned more in a kind of a working environment in the last 3 months than I've probably had in the previous 20 years. So it's been great. I really enjoyed that.
University of life and all that. It's amazing. It's phenomenal. So next question was going to be, what motivates you and what's driving you right now?
The same thing that's motivated me all along. My motivation hasn't changed at all. The very same thing that motivated me from the day that Mark, my first boss, offered me a job. Really, he offered me something that really tapped into a core value of mine. Okay, there's an old adage, I can't remember who said it, so let's just attribute it to Abraham Lincoln, that people either want to rule the world, heal the world, own the world, right? I want to heal the world. Okay, I'm a problem solver. I want to make and I know this is going to sound very grandiose, so I won't go as far as saying I want to make the world a better place, but I want to impact on individuals and make their world better. I want to make a difference, okay? And doing that where I can take a company that's just been funded, doesn't really know what to do, and help them scale is a huge passion of mine. Taking an individual that's been unhappy in a job, coaching them through a job, a career change, has been a huge passion of mine. I've spent the last 23 years doing that. Pivoting that to what I'm doing now, obviously there's a bit more of a distance because I don't get the same kind of tangible contact with somebody where I'm actually walking through every stage of the process, but knowing on a more macro scale that I'm able to create that kind of change, that's what motivates me.
That's very cool. Very, very cool. So what's happening out there now? Where are you seeing things starting to improve? Is the market starting to calm down, or is it going to get worse, do you think, before it gets better?
It's very hard to know. So my sister works for the NHS. She's a radiographer, or like a senior radiographer in the NHS. And a very close friend of mine, his daughter is the head of, I think it's called situational response or something. Basically, the people that have to deal with exactly this situation, pandemics and various other things. She's the one that does like the pandemic response for the state of Colorado, right? So, and I've got another very close friend who is who specializes in pandemic treatments, right? And he and a colleague of his have just written a paper that's been submitted to the New England Journal of Medicine. He was telling me yesterday. So I'm getting three very different perspectives. You know, an NHS worker, a head of effectively incident response, and somebody from the research side. And unfortunately, they're all, even though they're coming from three completely different parts of the world, are all basically saying the same thing, which is brace yourselves for the autumn, and realistically, don't expect things to be back to whatever normal is until the end of Q1 of next year. You know, I mean, Vegas's biggest economy, as well as tourism, is conventions. And the convention authority have pretty much written off 2020 and have written off the first half of 2021 as well. So I think that my own personal take is that, hope for the best, but kind of prepare for the worst. And I don't think that we're going to be back to kind of 2019 activity until the end of 2021. I think the world is going to kind of have a 2-year curve to kind of deal with,
It's
unfortunately.
interesting. It's interesting because the two sides of the Atlantic are so different at the moment. Don't get me wrong, we haven't got it perfect over here by any stretch of the imagination, and it almost makes me feel like we are going to have a second spike and a second wave coming through, but it just doesn't feel like we're going to get any way back to what we knew as normal back in January, February this year, and for at least, as you say, 2021.
Yeah.
We're gonna have the current situation around for a long time. It's a very new normal, as you said, quite rightly so, and it will be different. It will be different, but there are opportunities. It will be tough, but it's yeah, very
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely. And as long as people recognise that we're all in this together and we've all got to do our
Absolutely.
bit, I think we'll get through it. But it's funny. I was the friend of mine who's the doctor. He and I were remarking a few days ago that I think for our generation, this is similar to what our grandparents went through when they didn't expect, or probably actually more accurately, our great grandparents went through when they all went off to war in 1914 thinking it will be done by Christmas. And it took 4 years. I think that this is probably going to be the same thing where hopefully it won't take 4 years, but when the thing first hit at the end of February, beginning of March, people thought, oh, it's a short blip, they'll take care of it and it'll be done in a month or two, right? I think people are now recognizing it's going to take a lot longer. And I think
Mm.
that businesses and individuals are having to adjust, whether it's through having meetings like this over Zoom and Facebook Live, or whether it's just finding ways to continue. Because at the end of the day, we can't quarantine for 2 years because then there'll be no economy to come back to. So we're going to have to find a way, whether businesses individually pivoting, and economies at a macro level, adjusting so that people can still go to work, can still pay their bills, can still, spend money. Because ultimately, as we all know, cash is king. If money isn't circulating through an economy, the economy is going to die.
Absolutely.
And we, I think, as individuals and as parts of an economy, have to keep earning and spending money. Otherwise, the economy is going to die.
100%. I think you touched on as well. It's so unique because literally the whole globe is going through something pretty similar at the same time as well, which has never happened before. It's never been experienced before, and that's what makes it so unique. Is that it's
Yeah.
just never been seen on the scale as it has been before. So, excuse me, Siri, shut up. Okay, so what tip can you give to someone who's looking to start, or from a business point of view, you've obviously got loads of experience, been very successful in business. So what's a tip? I mean, would you tell someone to start a business now? Would you tell them to wait 6 months to a year? What would you say to someone now looking for advice about starting a new business?
Um, okay, I would say probably three things. Number one, make sure that you have at least, well, first of all, make sure you know exactly what your personal income requirements are.
Yep.
Know exactly what your cost of living is, and have that figure in mind of this is the amount of money I need to earn every month. Okay. Number two, figure out how long it's going to take you to get to that income level, and then double it.
Yep.
Okay. And have that amount of money in the bank before you start, because it's very, we entrepreneurs naturally are very optimistic, and the reason why 98% of businesses fail in the first year is because people underestimate their needs and overestimate their results.
Yep.
And I think that something that we did when we started the headhunting business back in 2005 was that we made sure we had, I think 6 or 8 months of business overheads, including salaries, in the bank before we started. And I'd never been 6 months without doing deals. And I was like, no way it's going to take 6-8 months. Ridiculous, right? But it very nearly did, because things take longer, and there are always the unanticipated things that just kind of come up. And particularly if you're starting out, you're not going to have an IT guy. You're not going to have an assistant. You're not going to have an HR person. You're not going to have all these things that other people have done for you, then now you're going to have to do it yourself. So I would say that's the first thing. Make sure you've got enough money and enough runway to take forward, okay? Secondly, this is purely just one man's opinion, but find a business where you can genuinely add value. I'm not a fan at all of this movement that seems to exist, and I think you and I have been exposed to it in what we've been through over the last month or so, Rich, of people deciding to become a guru just because they are 2 pages further in the book than you are. I don't care what someone wants to start a business in: basket weaving, gardening. People. So everyone's got a passion in something, right? But find something that you're passionate about, and you can genuinely either have knowledge in and have value in, or you've got enough passion that you want to go and find it and learn it and know it and own that knowledge. Because without that, it's very hard to consistently deliver value, and ultimately, that's what people are going to pay you for. Okay? There's a guy who we both follow who says your remuneration is proportionate to the problems that you solve and the value that you bring. And if all you are is a page ahead of the book than the guy you're trying to teach, how much value are you really adding? And how sustainable is that as a business model? So that's my 2 times 2 cents worth.
That's huge. It's massive, and loads of great value there. Some great ideas. You're absolutely right, bang on. Because no one ever gets the finances right at the beginning unless they planned it out properly. But as I see, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, people just don't do it properly. So very, very useful. Very, very, very useful there. So what's next for the business?
Well, we're going to continue producing content for people looking to change and transition their jobs, and then we're going to start to roll out some modules for companies that are looking to hire people but don't necessarily have the budget to engage a horribly expensive recruiter like me. And we're just going to continue, hopefully, producing content that adds value to people, making a difference. That's what's next.
And I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. So how can anyone watching this get further information about what you're doing or your products, or get in contact? What's the best thing for them to do?
Best place to start is to go on to careerdominationmastery.com. That's the name of the first product that we've launched. So it's careerdominationmastery.com. Alternatively, you can find me at simonlader.com, simonlader.com.
Nice and easy. Thank you very much. I don't want to take up too much of your time, because obviously I know that you're a Man United fan, and because Man United are 16 minutes into playing Aston Villa, my team, this could go one of 2 ways. So I think while we're still friends, we should call it a day right there before it starts getting ugly. But thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really useful.
It's been a real pleasure, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.